Israel. Let's bring you some breaking news. In the past few minutes, the news agency AFP has reported that the United Nations has asked the United States to reverse sanctions on the International Criminal Court. Earlier, President Trump denounced the ICC, accusing it of illegitimate and baseless actions against the US and Israel, a move Israel praised, but which the ICC itself condemned. In an executive order sanctioning the court, Mr. Trump said it had abused its power by issuing arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defence Minister Yoav Gallant. The court alleges that they committed war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. The sanctions may include blocking the property and assets of people connected with the ICC and suspending their entry into the US. On Thursday, Mr. Netanyahu met top US lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Neither Israel nor the US is a member of the ICC or recognises its jurisdiction. The ICC itself has condemned the move, saying it will harm its independent and impartial judicial work. In a statement, it says the court stands firmly by its personnel. Well, let's speak to our correspondent Joe Inwood, who is in Jerusalem for us. Joe, so what do we know about what the UN has said in response to the US sanctions? Reaction continuing to come in after this order signed by President Trump.
Yeah, so the reaction that we've had from here in Israel has come both from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Gideon Saar, the foreign minister. They have condemned the actions of the ICC in the past, and they have welcomed today the decision by President Trump to sanction the ICC. They've said that, as well as they are not signatories to the treaty, they've also said in the past that its moves are illegitimate, and they've actually accused it of being anti-Semitic, of drawing a false equivalence between Israel and Hamas. Now, of course, those are charges that the ICC refutes, and many of the other countries who are signatories to it have stood by the ICC's decisions. But of course, this has always been deeply controversial, and this move by President Trump is just adding to that sense of controversy.
Yeah, and it's just worth, isn't it, digging down into what it actually means in terms of practicalities, because of course the US and Israel, as we know, are not signatories to the ICC, but it's more potentially targeted towards the individuals that work for it, who may have to move in and out of the United States.
Yeah, so there's that. I mean, that's probably the main practical implication of this, and this is something that a former member of ICC staff has told the BBC earlier today. It's going to make it difficult for people. They won't be able to travel to the US, so any work they would need to do there would be made far more difficult, and also in terms of their resources being frozen, that sort of thing. So it might have practical implications of their work. I mean, we don't know what those are at this point, but that's the concern. In terms of the implication it might have for Prime Minister Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, his former defence minister, who was also sanctioned by the ICC, they are under an arrest warrant. And any country who's a signatory, so that's lots of European countries, the United Kingdom, would be under an obligation to arrest them were they to come to their territory. Now, I think that jeopardy, the risk around that, means that Mr. Netanyahu just would not have travelled there. And I don't think the imposition of these sanctions is going to change that calculation. Although, if any country were to try and carry out an arrest warrant, I think now the diplomatic consequences would be even higher for them because of the clearly stated position of the US government.
Joe, while the world is digesting this news, we also, of course, have the plan that President Trump put forward for the future of Gaza, and he's been commenting further on that plan.
Yeah, he's been doubling down on it. I mean, there were audible gasps when he set out initially his plan to turn Gaza into a Riviera of the Middle East. I mean, it was scarcely believable that so many years of established American foreign policy had been torn up in front of the television cameras, but that's what he did, and yesterday he doubled down on it. It's interesting that even the Israelis haven't actually gone as far, certainly the Israeli front kind of cabinet ministers haven't gone as far as the US president did in talking about removing people from Gaza. He has suggested it should be done without their consent. whereas the Israelis have suggested that any move should be voluntary and that they should give people the option to leave. They actually expressed it yesterday, the defence minister, in terms of people having a right to leave. Now, I think it is worth pointing out that that will be rather difficult to take as a suggestion for many people in Gaza who have had that fundamental right denied to them for a long time. But I think there's one other really important thing to bring out here, and that's the potential implication for the words of Donald Trump. And they are just words at this point, but the implication they might have for the incredibly sensitive ceasefire negotiations. Now, we're in stage 1 at the moment. That's brought a temporary ceasefire, but we're supposed to be moving to stage 2, which will be a permanent ceasefire, and stage 3, which would look at a long-term political horizon for the people of Gaza. Now, with his words, Donald Trump has suggested that that political horizon for the people of Gaza might not be within Gaza at all, and that's going to be a red line for Hamas. And I think there's real concern, and we heard this expressed by the Egyptians yesterday, who are a key mediator in this. There will be real concern that the removal of what they see as an acceptable political horizon for them and their people is going to make negotiations about moving on to stage 2 and certainly stage 3 of this ceasefire far more difficult.
OK, Joe Winwood in Jerusalem, thank you.